Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
Okay. So here's the thing. I was thinking about this, and we were kind of preparing this show, and I was thinking about how our usual approach to life, and when I say our, I mean mine, okay, is to kind of, I'm just going to say it, seek comfort. All right. So what I mean by that is that we want good health, right, which is comfort. We want to have our finances in good shape. We want to have happy relationships. We want to have nothing broken, right? We don't want a broken car. We don't want a broken dishwasher. We don't want a broken roof. We don't, like, everything we want, like, good, right? So comfort. And then if anything isn't in that description, right? If anything is a little bit out of whack, if your relationship isn't very good, if your finances are kind of crappy, if you're in debt, if you've got a broken muffler, whatever it is, then we are unhappy and we're uncomfortable, and basically we think of like something is wrong, right? And we just want to fix that thing until things are back to normal, all right? And I was thinking about that as I was going through yet another wrong thing, and I realized that discomfort is not necessarily a sign that things are wrong if you reframe things. Okay, so I was thinking about how sometimes I think, like, what we ask the question, like, what is the point of life? Like, why are we here? And I think one good answer to that question is the reason that we are here in the amount of time that we're given is to become the best version of ourselves. I think that's a pretty solid thing. It's like, you know, if you are 20 years old and you live to be 80 and you did not become any better than you were when you were 20 years old, you probably failed at the game of life. All right. So if it is true that the point of life is to become the best version of ourselves, then if that's our frame, then comfort is not actually the goal. And it's not, I'm not saying that we should want to, like, we should love for things to be in chaos, or we should love to be in debt or anything like that. But we need to, like, look differently when something comes up in our life that is a challenge. Instead of being disappointed about it, we can reframe it and say, this is our opportunity to get better. All right. Am I making sense with this?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like the idea that the struggle in life is sort of the point, because it's helping us get better. So if you look at, like, football, right, which is sort of the metaphor we were playing with tonight, is like football teams have practices. And if the point of a practice is for it to be as comfortable as possible, where there is no laps, there is no tackling, there is no yelling from the coach, there is just sitting around drinking lemonade, your chance of winning the next game is going to be very low, right?
Right.
So in reality, a practice is sort of an orchestrated trial that gets you better so that you can perform well at the game. And then when you look at the game, within the game itself, there's ups and downs, right? A team scores a touchdown, they get an interception, you fumble the ball. Those are also trials, and those are opportunities for you as a team to get better. So through the whole thing, like, every trial we encounter is an opportunity to get better. That the struggle is sort of the point. So it's kind of an interesting thing, because as I've written in the book, Chance of Awesome, how changing the way you see changes everything, it's all about this. It's all about changing your mindset, creating a reframe for looking at things. One book I would highly recommend that just came out recently is called Reframe Your Brain. And it's by Scott Adams, who is the creator of the comic strip Dilbert. That's how most people know him. But he has a really interesting book it's filled with reframes like this. So, like, for instance, one of them that is kind of interesting is he has a reframe that looks at alcohol and says alcohol is poison. And for people who are trying to not drink as much, that simple reframe just changes their brain around. Like, and his whole point of his book is, like, the reframe doesn't even have to be all the way true. It just has to kind of, like, make sense in your brain, right? So that has been something that I have really tried to work on, as I've noticed challenges come into my life, because of course I would rather there wouldn't be challenges in my life. I would rather just have every day I wake up and it's sunny and I have great meals and I have fun with the kids, and some days that's what life is. But when it goes bad, to embrace it and say, this trial is an opportunity to practice patience. It's an opportunity to practice endurance, maybe kindness, maybe humility, maybe gratitude, right? It helps us to get better in those areas. Um, and so, like I said, if you seek comfort in practice, if you seek comfort in a game, in life, the odds of your losing the game is going to be higher. And it's the same thing with like video games, or if you're in a tournament, right? Whether it's thinking of Julianne, if it's a tennis tournament, right? If you're in Wimbledon, or if you're in the football playoffs, every level you go that you get closer to the championship, it gets harder. And that's the other thing, is like if it was the same trial over and over again, it wouldn't seem hard. You wouldn't grow because you've already beat that trial before. You've already beat that challenge. So when you play Super Mario Brothers, the first level is kind of easy, and the second level gets a little harder, and it gets a little harder, and it gets a little harder. And hopefully, by the time you get to the end of the game, you beat Bowser, you win, you're the champion. So I'm mixing metaphors here, but the point is to just kind of maybe reframe it, that instead of when trials come up, to say that now something's wrong, that maybe something is normal, and maybe looking at that is that as you grow, the trials get harder. This is normal, and this is how you win at the game of life.
I like Kim Stampa McMillan's comment saying, given enough time, sometimes challenges can become a good story. And that has been true.
Mm-hmm.
And we joke about that with other speakers for sure, that when you're in the midst of just one of those unbelievable stories, as long as everyone's safe and healthy and you're just kind of experiencing, right, and it's not complete crisis or trauma, you really do think, oh, this is going to be a good story. Because there's something about being able to use a story to teach a lesson, right?
Yeah.
That speakers are always on the lookout for. But that's true for anyone. In fact, we just heard a really good speaker 2 weeks ago, Dan Burris, who is from the Wisconsin area. He's a futurist and has a lot of amazing insights, but probably 40-year speaking career at least, would you say? Maybe even
I think he
more
said
than that?
close to 50, because he started when he was pretty young.
So he shared with us something that he does that he started in his early 20s. And so now I think he said he's 76 years old. And he said that he decided in his early 20s that every single year he would learn a new skill. And it would be a skill for the year. And then next year he would learn something else. So if you do the math of 76-year-old now in early 20s, like he's like, I know a lot of cool things. I know how to do a lot of cool things. He's like, my whole wall of my house here in Wisconsin has instruments on it that I can play. And I'm not amazing at every one, but he's like, if I went and tried, 15 different instruments, then I wouldn't know which ones I'm actually pretty good at, like naturally. And he kind of listed a couple that he was pretty good at. But everything from like sports to, it's just amazing.
Oh, he said he learned scuba diving one year. He learned how to cook one year. He learned painting 1 year.
Yeah, he listed everything, you guys.
He did, I think he did stand-up comedy 1 year, he said. Like, and he admitted, like, not everyone was a winner. Like, he wasn't either very good or he didn't enjoy it all that much. But it was like one of the things he said that stood out to me, he said, I have quite a palette of experiences to draw from. Yes. And as a speaker, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
But just as a human being, right. It's like that's.
It kind of reminds me of winning at the game. When you go to learn something new, we talk about this all the time with tinkering and how us adults like to be really good at something in order to keep going at it. So if you're new to something, so he has just built that muscle up of tinkering and being okay with failing, because he's always in that mode of starting a whole new skill and being the newbie. So he said he has a lot of good stories. I'm like, I want to sit and listen to like hours of them, because I thought that was kind of a neat tie-in to what you're saying tonight.
Yeah, so hopefully this is helpful to kind of look at, maybe you're going through a challenge right now that you're not particularly thrilled about. Maybe there's one right around the corner, but to look at it instead as a challenge that you have an opportunity to practice some virtue and to get better, become a better version of yourself. And by the way, again, this is not about becoming a glutton for punishment and hoping that there are always bad things, because, again, just like in a game, you have timeouts, you have off seasons, you have halftime, and we are blessed in many ways where with seasons of life where things are going good, and it's a chance to recuperate, it's a chance to learn new things, it's a chance to catch our breath, just like a halftime would be. Again, in the off season, oftentimes athletes work on a new skill to add to their game, a new 3-point shot, or they go weightlifting or whatever. So that's kind of how life is. And so I know that helped me at the beginning of the year. I was especially thinking a lot about that because I just felt after the storm, and then we had a lot of busyness helping your parents move, and then everything that happened with your dad and hospice and all that. It just felt like man, why can't we get things back to normal? And it was like, no, this is the point of life, is to be a better person, to be the best version of yourself. So hopefully that is helpful to someone who is maybe going through a hard time, and hope it's useful.